On today's show, I'm breaking down why Carlos Rodon should be the Rangers' top priority in free agency, what the concerns are with his injuries, how well he's done the past 2 years, and what it would mean for the Rangers moving forward. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Thursday, November 17th. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. On today's show, I'm breaking down why Carlos Rodon should be the Rangers' top priority in free agency. Simple. He's younger, he is healthier as of late, and the Rangers will have a lot longer with him under team control, and hopefully at a cheaper average annual value than some of the other top free agents on this market in terms of the starting pitchers. Rodon is one of the 3 best pitchers remaining on the market. It's deGrom, Verlander, and Rodon. What order you put those in just kind of depends on what you prioritize. By the way, Justin Verlander did just win an AL Cy Young Award. Rodon finished in 6th behind this year's winner in the NL, Sandy Alcantara, who, by the way, I did talk about on yesterday's episode. I referenced something that my fellow Locked On host, Peter Pratt of Locked On Marlins, said that apparently was a reference joke to something else that Sandy Alcantara they were listening to offers on him. Apparently that was a bit, and I need to go walk to England to go fight Peter Pratt. But that's a separate thing. You should go check out yesterday's episode anyway, because it was a good one, a lot of hypothetical trades for some other free agent targets, or some other pitching help, but the top of the rotation should probably be headed by Carlos Rodon next year. He is going to be 30 next year, turns 30 on December 10th, so not too far away. He is a 6'4", listed at 245-pound lefty who was just absolutely dominant for the San Francisco Giants this past year and was excellent for the Chicago White Sox the year before in 2021. He has had 2 fantastic years, but there have been some concerns about him. I'm going to go into what those concerns are a little later on in this episode, but I just want to talk about what he did this past year. I thought he would finish much higher in the Cy Young Award voting. I thought he'd be top 3 because he had a top 3 worthy season. Nobody was really going to pass Sandy Alcantara this year, but he came close. He went 31 starts this year with a 2.88 ERA, 178 innings, which was by far a career high. Also had 237 strikeouts in under 180 innings. Let me say that again, 237. Absolutely phenomenal stuff for him. That was 12 strikeouts per 9 innings. And he didn't walk anybody either. And he also didn't allow any home runs. The fielding independent pitching absolutely loved him. He led the league at 225 FIP, 0.6 homers per 9, under 3 walks per 9 at 2.6. He was just absolutely phenomenal this past season. And in terms of Fangraphs WAR, he was second among all pitchers in baseball. All of them. Behind only Aaron Nola. He had a 6.2. Rodon had a 6.2 Fangraphs WAR. Aaron Nola had a 6.3 Fangraphs WAR. So Rodon was ahead of both Cy Young winners in Justin Verlander by 0.1 and Sandy Alcantara by 0.5. So really, really good season for Rodon. He is primarily a fastball slider guy, uses his 4-seamer 61% of the time, slider about a third of the time, curveball 6% of the time, and changeup just 2% of the time. So pretty much just a 4-seamer and slider, but boy howdy, that's really all he needs. The curveball is just kind of a show me pitch. The changeup is I want something different to throw twice a game, and he usually does that all right, he doesn't really need it to use it a whole lot more because the fastball and the slider are so dang good. His strikeout rate was in the top 5% of baseball. His walk rate in the top half, pretty good at avoiding barrels in the top third of baseball in terms of barrel percentage in the top half of walk rate. Got guys to chase a whole lot out of the zone and expand the zone, and when they did expand the zone, they were swinging and missing a whole lot. The fastball has a good deal of spin on it, averages around 96 miles an hour or so. Nothing outstanding, nothing absolutely unreal, but the spin rate makes it play up, and that slider plays very, very well off of it, and so that is what makes him so dang good. A lot of the other expected numbers are right around where you would like to see them. The expected slugging, batting average, ERA, WOBA, all those around the top 10% of baseball. The only one that was below that was in the top 11% of baseball, which was expected slugging. But yeah, he has done a really, really good job this year. Just absolutely dominating hitters. And one of the concerns about him was, can he stay healthy? He's had a lot of promise. He was picked number 3 overall out of NC State back several years ago. Let's see, in 2014 by the Chicago White Sox. Was just fantastic at NC State for his 3 seasons there. He has made the All-Star team for the last couple of years. In 2021, he was dominant for the first half, struggled a little bit due to injuries, didn't pitch all that much in the second half. But when he was on the hill these last 2 years, he's been flat out phenomenal. This is kind of a breakout couple of seasons for him. Last year, he probably would have gotten a big old deal if not for the injuries that sidelined him for a decent chunk of the second half. But he took a kind of prove-it deal, a 1-and-1, a player option, a 2-year deal with a player option for the second year with the San Francisco Giants. It seems like they're not as likely to retain him. They did love the 1 year they had from him, but I think they are going to be focusing a lot of their wallet on the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, bringing their large adult son home. Coming up, we're going to get into some of the concerns with Carlos Rodon, but I did want to touch on something very quickly. The Rangers have been selected to host the All-Star game in 2024. There's going to be activities around Arlington and around Fort Worth as well. Sure, that's great. I'm excited about the All-Star game coming to town. It's a little weird that they're going to be doing a bunch of stuff in Fort Worth and kind of spreading it out and making people travel a whole lot to a game they're already traveling to, but I'm excited for the Rangers to get to show off this stadium. Hopefully the Rangers will have a lot of All-Stars there to participate in this All-Star game. Really, really looking forward to that. Congratulations to the Rangers organization for getting that selection. But yeah, don't have a whole lot to say on that at the moment because it's, a year and a half away. It's going to be a while, but you've got plenty of time to save up your money for tickets and such. Coming up, we're going to get into some of the concerns with Carlos Rodon, how warranted they are. But first, this episode is brought to you by Simply Safe. If you've thought about securing your home with home security but have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Rangers listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here is why you'll love it. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get a priority police response. Don't miss your call to chance to save big on the only security system that I recommend. Get 50% off new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Now, some of the concerns with Carlos Rodon have been his injuries. That is the main concern with him. That has been the main concern with him basically since he was drafted. There was a lot of wear and tear on him. I could not find, I swear, I spent 30 minutes trying to find high school innings count for Carlos Rodon. I could not find it. I could find that he had a sub-1 ERA and 100 plus strikeouts in his final 2 seasons in high school. Was pitching for the varsity team, made All-State both those years, but I can't tell you how many innings he pitched because no one wanted to include that, which I felt was very, very important. If you can, tell me that he's got 116 strikeouts, that's great. Did he do that in 45 innings? If so, that's unbelievably good. Did he do it in 300 innings? That's less impressive. I would just like to say that for anyone who is making stats, if you include, numbers like strikeouts or walks or runs allowed, whatever, you got to give me the innings pitched. Got to give me the context. Anyway, when he went to NC State, he pitched a whole lot there as well. He was a starter for 3 years, was one of their best starters all 3 years that he was there. But in his 3 seasons at NC State, he pitched 336 innings. That is not an unreasonable amount. That is not, unheard of, but it is still a really, really big workload before he even made it to professional baseball. Didn't take long in the minors, but made it up to the majors at, I believe, age 22. Yeah, really, really sped through that minor league system. Had a pretty good rookie year. Somehow didn't finish in the top 10 of rookie of the year voting, but pitched 139 innings his rookie year at 22 in 2015. But from then on, it had been a real struggle for him to pitch more than 150 innings. He only did it once. That was back in 2016. He had a 4.04 ERA in 165 innings as a 23-year-old. Next time that he pitched over 150 innings was, well, this year, 178. Last year, he only made it to the 132 mark, which, by the way, that 132 mark was the highest he had pitched since 2016. It had been a really, really rough couple of years for him, but you could always see the promise when he was on the hill. This year, the only thing that he didn't do really well was doing a great job of pitching deep into games. He is a big strikeout pitcher, so sometimes that pitch count can run up and he doesn't go as deep into games. He had 4 starts under 5 innings this year. And by the way, after 2020, the White Sox non-tendered him. Some of the injuries that he has sustained, he had Tommy John surgery in 2019, which is why he pitched, 34 2/3 innings in 2019, only pitched 7 2/3 in 2020 in that shortened season. He probably wouldn't have pitched all that much more than that, even if the season was, going on. He had Tommy John surgery in May of 2019, so he missed a lot of time there. He's had a lot of shoulder injuries, 4 times that he has had to go on the IL for a shoulder injury, including twice in 2021 that ended with shoulder fatigue. That was pretty much the end of his 2021 season. He also missed 68 days due to bicep tightness back in 2017. A lot of kind of random injuries, but this is the first year that he hasn't had, well, he did miss some time on the IL with COVID-19, missed his last start, but that was more of all right, we're out of contention. We're going to keep you from getting injured. You've already pitched a pretty big workload. So we're going to kind of save your arm and let you go into free agency or go into next year. They were hoping that he would just pick up his player option and come back, but that was never going to be an option with how well he did this year. But yeah, this was the first year that he has been fully healthy, probably since college. I don't know. I can't finding day-to-day injuries on what he did in college back in 2014, 15, it's just not going to happen. I could spend hours and I probably would not find anything, but he was healthy this year, and that is a huge, huge plus in his favor. And I think that there are legitimate concerns about that injury. Shoulder injuries for pitchers are some of the scariest things. They are the ones that come back, the ones that end careers early. Like, they are just absolutely nasty for all baseball players, including hitters. I mean, shoulder injuries were what derailed Jurickson Profar's career. Like, it was just so many years before he could get back on track. And with pitchers, I think there was a lot of back injuries with Matt Harrison. Those are also concerning. The elbow ones, that you can kind of come back from those, especially with Tommy John, how effective it is nowadays. It's not always 100% you're going to come back and be exactly your old self. Rodon ended up finding a new gear to himself and was more effective after coming back from Tommy John surgery. But I mean, the White Sox non-tendered him after he missed those 2 years. I thought the Rangers should have maybe looked at going and getting him in 2021 because they needed some pitching help. They needed some everything help, really, going into 2021. That didn't end up being the case. I kind of wish they went after Carlos Rodon last year. I think that would have been a really great move. But after spending all that money on Seager and Simeon and also a little bit on John Gray, it was like, all right, they weren't going to spend a whole bunch of money on Carlos Rodon as well. So I think that would have helped a whole lot. Maybe this team would have been around 500 if they had Rodon in their rotation, along with what else they had. But I digress. That is a story for another day. They can go after him now. They have seen how effective he can be. And, again, those shoulder concerns, while he has pitched through them this year, and he did a great job of not missing any starts and pitched the most that he has pitched in an entire season. And I'm really happy that he was able to stay healthy and show how dominant he can be. It's not like the concerns are unwarranted. He is healthy now. He is younger than some of the other guys on the market, but the concerns are there. Coming up, we're going to get into some overall takeaways on Rodon, what a deal might look like, and why the Rangers need to prioritize him over deGrom, Verlander, and some of the other guys on the market. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at betonline.net. If you are feeling frisky about the U.S. men's national team, I think they are starting to have some lines on the World Cup, some things you can look at there. Maybe the U.S. men's national team gets out of their group. Maybe they win their opener against Wales or England, or I know their opener is against Wales, but maybe they beat England as well. Maybe they beat whoever else is in their group, trying to remember who exactly that is, but should be a lot of fun action there. If you want to bet against the Mavericks in any game that they don't have Luka Doncic in, we saw them lose to the worst team in the world last night without Luka. So maybe you can place some bets on that, or them coming back and looking much better with Luka. I don't know, but wherever you're looking to do your sports wagering, BetOnline is the place to go. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more, because BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, overall, I should have led with this, the main reason to prioritize Carlos Rodon, because Derek Holland on the radio yesterday said, Carlos Rodon is better than deGrom. I should have led with that. I'm sorry. I don't know why I used my weakest argument to open my third segment, but there you go. I don't know what else you need than the great Derek Holland saying, of course, the lefty says the lefty is better. But no, there are really some strong arguments for either case. Obviously, there are injury concerns with all three of the top three. I think the Rangers need to end up with one of these top three remaining. Clayton Kershaw I put also in this top tier, but Kershaw took the drama out really quickly and said, nope, I'm going back to the Dodgers. Peace out. I think he's going to finish his career with the Dodgers, and so that's not something the Rangers need to worry about. But Justin Verlander is a free agent. Jacob deGrom is having some bickering and some flirtatious dealings with some other teams, including the Rangers. He has said that he has interest in the Rangers, and Verlander might just want to leave his Houston Astros and go somewhere else, which I would very much encourage. Literally anywhere else that Verlander wants to go, I think that would be a great option. But I mean, Verlander, despite winning a Cy Young at age 39 after not pitching for 2 seasons, he is going to be 40 next year. And granted, maybe he's the reincarnation of Nolan Ryan. Maybe he's just going to throw 200 innings until he turns 67. I don't think that's humanly possible, but if someone was going to do it, it's probably Justin Verlander. But I think of these guys, of the concerns, I mean, Verlander is much older. deGrom is, I believe, 34, and Rodon is going to be 30 next season. I think deGrom is going to be 35 starting next year, and he's 34 right now. But Rodon is younger. That is a huge, huge benefit for the Rangers. He is going to probably command, not demand, maybe demand as well, somewhere at least, I think, 5 years. I think that's the minimum that he's going to get. Someone is going to pay him a lot of money and a lot of years, and I think the Rangers are going to be that team. I think at most he gets 6 years, because again, there are some big, big injury concerns. Now, if you were to ask what Spotrac thinks of him, well, I would say that they have him at a market value of $32.4 million average annual value. They think that he's going to get a 6-year deal worth $194.9 million. So basically $195 million for 6 years. I think that's a little on the high side. I think that's the absolute most he could make. I don't think that's kind of an average calculation. Some of the deals that they used to calculate that were Garrett Cole's deal. Again, he's not Garrett Cole. Steven Strasburg's deal, that's similar and also very terrifying. Strasburg was 31 when he signed his deal, worth $245 million for 7 years, $35 million a year. He's not going to get $35 million a year, as good as this past year was. Strasburg also had a lot of injuries, and that deal is looking like an absolute noose around the neck of the Washington Nationals, which is a darn shame because when Steven Strasburg was healthy, he was really darn good, which is, I'm hoping, what people don't say about Carlos Rodon. I'm hoping they're just saying, oh, he's really good, and he will continue to be good because the Rangers prioritized him. He also has an agent named Scott Boras. Maybe you've heard of Scott Boras, but right now the Rangers are kind of the Scott Boras proxy team. I mean, you give out $500 million to Boras clients in a 2-day span, and you become Boras's proxy client team. They have a good relationship with him. Seager is a Boras client. Semien is a Boras client. I don't think that John Gray is, but I think there are other guys who have Boras as their agent, including one Joseph Nicholas Gallo, who they pissed off, and then they pissed off Scott Boras with the extension they offered him. But then they made Scott Boras happy by giving a whole bunch of money to his clients that maybe other teams weren't as ready to dish out that big of contracts. So I think that Carlos Rodon will definitely have an ear open for what the Rangers have to say because of their relationship with his agent. deGrom does not have Scott Boras as his agent. I feel like every single top 10 player in baseball has Boras as their agent, and deGrom does not. But deGrom is already listening, and I think those two are going to be my top choices. But if I had to lean towards Rodon, which is what this episode is, this is not me definitively saying that I think Rodon needs to, but this is me saying if that's the case, then why is Rodon the person who the Rangers should be prioritizing? And as I've looked into this, I kind of think once I actually look into more of the deGrom injuries, by the way, Friday's episode is going to be why the Rangers should pursue deGrom as their number one option. So just a little 1-2 counterpunch there. And I will hand out my final verdict of which I would prioritize. But at this point, for this episode, it is Rodon because he is younger. And I think, the average annual value of around $32.4 million, if that is what he gets, I don't know that necessarily that is what he gets, but that's still significantly less money a year than deGrom is going to command. And I think it's significantly less than Verlander is going to command. I think both those guys, the deals that are going to be offered to them are going to be pretty similar to the Max Scherzer deal. Scherzer got 3 years for $130 million. Not a whole lot of years. He is on the older side, but a whole bunch in the average annual value. That's $43 million a year. That is, if Rodon gets the 32.4, that's $10 million in savings. Not the Rangers should particularly care about that, but it could help in whatever kind of bat they want to pursue. I think that the Nimmo option is the top of the market, but they're probably not going to get that. Depending on how much money they want to give, I don't know, someone like Michael Conforto or whoever else they think is worth their money on the free agent hitter market, that might be able to save them. They can, reach a little higher in the barrel as opposed to taking off of the bottom shelf if they do get Rodon versus deGrom or Verlander. But the guy is an absolute strikeout machine. The Rangers could use that. He had a lot of starts where not as many blow-up starts. There were a few too many 5-inning starts for my taste, but there were a whole lot of other starts where he went very, very deep into games. He started 31 games. In 17 of those, he went 6 or more innings. He went 7 or more innings in 6 of his 31 starts, so that's around a fifth of his starts and more than a third of the games that he started on the hill, he had 10 or more strikeouts. The Rangers don't have a whole lot of that. John Gray is their biggest strikeout pitcher at this point, with 9.5 strikeouts per 9. Pretty good job, but even he didn't have a whole lot of 10-plus strikeout games. He had a few. The Rangers hadn't had a whole lot of those since Lance Lynn went away, but it is good to have someone with a lot of strikeout stuff. when you get to the playoffs and you need to strike guys out. He had a whole lot of really impressive individual starts, which I think his most impressive for me was when he had a complete game against the San Diego Padres. He went 9 innings, allowed just 3 hits and 1 run and a pair of walks and 12 strikeouts in San Diego. That is a really difficult thing to do. Granted, they didn't have Juan Soto at that point. It was earlier in the season, July 9th. I think that happened a few weeks after that, but he was absolutely dominant against them. He had another start where he went 8 shutout innings, only allowed 2 hits and 2 walks with 8 strikeouts, but that was against the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are, pretty hapless, so that's not quite as impressive to me. Only a few really just awful starts. He had one start where he went under 4 innings, and that was a 8-run outing in St. Louis against the Cardinals. That'll happen to anybody. They've got a really darn good offensive team. Not as concerned with that, but the guy has got some serious stuff. Would be the best left-handed pitcher that the Rangers have had in a long time. I would say since C.J. Wilson, but I think he's better than C.J. Wilson, and I'm struggling to think of another lefty off the top of my head who's been better than them since the 1990s or early 2000s. So, yeah, I think this would be a no-brainer. Having another dominant lefty, if the Rangers wanted to make a trade for another starting pitcher, pretty much all the ones that I listed in yesterday's episode were righties. So having 2 pretty darn good lefties in your rotation in Rodon and Perez, I think would be a huge boost to them. If they did make a trade for somebody else, for some, whatever one of those 6 guys you think, Corbin Burnes, Woodruff, Lopez, Sixto Sanchez, or Shane Bieber, I think that'd be great. You could go Rodon plus one of those righties, then Perez, then John Gray, and then, Dane Dunning is your number 5 starter, which I think would be a really good rotation. That plus this offense, adding one more bat, I think would be a playoff contender. I think that's what it would take to be like a strong playoff contender, not just like, oh, the Rangers are kind of above 500. They're kind of fighting for it, because the demand is make the playoffs in 2023 or some more heads are going to roll. I don't know if it's going to be Chris Young's, but it seems like that's pretty much the edict. Like there's going to be a lot of major changes that are going to happen. I don't think it's going to be Bruce Bochy because, it's Bruce Bochy. They just signed him to a 3-year deal, making a lot of money, probably one of the highest paid managers in baseball. I don't think that they have released publicly what he's going to be making, but I think you give Bruce Bochy that kind of a squad with Rodon at the top of it, then, one of those other guys or, some other just pretty good pitcher in the middle of that rotation or at the number 2 spot. I wish there was some other name that I was thinking of that I can't think of that would be in that spot for like right behind Carlos Rodon and right above Martin Perez. But the Rangers, I think, should give a lot of money to Carlos Rodon. At this point, I would be over the moon if it was Rodon or deGrom. I think both those guys are fantastic. Even if it was Justin Verlander, who I think is my 3rd choice, like still, how can you be mad at the Rangers signing a guy with that kind of a career? But at this point for this episode, I am leaning towards Rodon. The younger option will have more years of control of him, and we have seen at his peak, he has been healthier than the other 2 guys this year, didn't miss a single start, and who knows if he can even get better next year, depending on what the Rangers can teach him if he comes to Texas. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, making Locked On Rangers your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank y'all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.